Srulik, really appreciate the opportunity to sit down today and the opportunity to chat, and great to do it here in your new hometown, I suppose, of New York. The conversation today will really center around your work, around your background, and the topic of the challenges of strategy. But to begin with, it'd be great if you could just give a bit of an introduction to yourself, to your work, and the work you're doing today here as well.
Of course. First of all, very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Srulik Dvorsky. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called TailorMed. I live now in New York, but as you said, this is a new hometown for me. I'm originally from Israel, and my family and I moved here about 3 years ago. My background for the last, it's coming up for 20 years now, has been in healthcare. But I didn't start in like what we currently do in healthcare that we can talk about today. I actually started as a student in a med device company that eventually consumed 10 years of my life, but it was an amazing journey for a neurostimulation device company, also out of Israel, but in a very different part of healthcare, which was ischemic stroke. And with that background and also some personal experiences with family members of mine who were diagnosed with cancer, started like many founders in this space to create to kind of get an itch to do something. And in 2017, partnered with Adam, our co-founder and CTO, to build this company that we'll be talking about today.
And your interest in healthcare, as you said, really grew as you moved into your working life. Did you have an interest in healthcare before that, or a passion, a desire to move in that direction?
It's a great question. Like, I didn't know that I'm gonna find my career in healthcare. When I was 17 and a half, like many other Israelis, I went to the IDF into a tech unit there. And that was an amazing time for me, like being exposed to like really complex challenges, but for something that I truly like believed in its purpose. And I saw different sides of it that I didn't know before, obviously, because I was also 17 and a half. But then after the IDF, I started working for Applied Materials, which is an amazing company. But it was a very different experience. I couldn't find the reason, but I wasn't myself. And only when I started that student position in BrainsGate, the previous company, I think something clicked. And I realized that when I'm doing purpose-driven innovation, and for me, the purpose in the IDF was obviously like protecting the state of Israel. In healthcare is like getting an ischemic stroke, a new treatment modality, and now having a different problem in mind. Those things are driving me to do, I would say, more than I think I could do. And that passion is driven from the purpose. And healthcare became kind of the centerpiece of my career.
And I want to move on, of course, to TailorMed, but it's really interesting that you use the term purpose-driven innovation, because a lot of the time we and myself and others use the term customer-driven innovation, truly understanding the needs of the customer. For you, what's the difference between customer-driven innovation and purpose?
I think it's a very personal thing for me. Like when we do what we do, we also obsess about our customers. But there are amazing companies out there that are solving like meaningful problems to solve for customers. But I couldn't connect to it, because I think that what drives me to be better and that I can see the qualities that I now think I can bring to TailorMed and other companies is the reason and the why behind what we're doing. It doesn't conflict with the customer's needs. It actually brings us, and now TailorMed as a team of individuals who are also driven by that purpose, to just be so much better in solving those challenges.
And then on the topic of TailorMed, I've been fortunate enough to learn a little bit about the organization prior to us chatting today. But it'd be great if you could just give a bit of a background to the genesis of the organization and what is the purpose today? What exactly are you focused on?
Yeah, so the purpose, we have to start there. It's patients who are undergoing either chronic or critical illnesses and very complex medical journeys face unfortunately, a very broad range of barriers that will prevent them from getting access to the care they need, to being able to afford the care they need, and to be adherent to the care they need. And personally, when I started this journey, it was from a personal experience with family members in Israel with cancer, but I was drawn to what became like the last 7 years of the company, which is a very specific barrier that is where we started the journey with TailorMed, which is the financial barrier for patients. As you probably know, although not originally from the US, the US has a massive affordability crisis, and especially for patients on high-cost drugs. And when I realized that it's like having the diagnosis and then starting to live with the fact that you have a new thing to manage, a new illness that you need to treat, and also thinking about the fact that you need to care about how you afford it, was like I wasn't prepared for that, because coming from Israel and coming from
the
UK, we have a very social healthcare system. It has its challenges. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
But you don't think about the fact that you might not be able to pay for a treatment. That was the impetus of TailorMed. And we started as a point solution to solve that specifically. And over the last few years, what started as a solution, which is a tech solution, we are a software company that works with providers, that works with patients, that works with pharmacies, that now works with pharma. All of the things that we're trying to solve for are a very simple challenge, which is how can we identify those patients who have a financial need and connect them with third-party financial assistance to close that gap and at least allow them to focus on their care.
There's a stat which always shocks me, and don't quote me on it because I heard it a while ago, but it's that one of the leading causes for bankruptcy in the United States is a cancer diagnosis, which is, again, coming from a country such as the UK, with the National Health Service, which again is by no means perfect, and we can debate the challenges of both sides and the benefits of both sides. But it's a scary thought that a cancer diagnosis can be one of the leading causes of bankruptcy for individuals and families in the United States and in other countries as well.
So medical debt is the number one reason for bankruptcy amongst Americans. And for cancer patients, it's 2.5 times as much as an ordinary person.
Wow.
And there is a term that I was like shocked to realize that is called financial toxicity, which is almost like another side effect of having those types of specialty conditions.
And for you as an organization, you describe now what it is that TailorMed does. You describe some of the challenges that you help to overcome. But it's a beast. It's a behemoth. I don't mean in terms of the organization, but I mean the challenge that you're trying to overcome. Where do you start?
Small, like when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And for us, it was Traverse City, Michigan.
Okay.
Have you heard about this place?
No, it's on the edge of my consciousness, but I don't think it's.
Yeah. So imagine like the winter of 2020, the winter of 2017, where we started, an Israeli team of 2 founders traveling to that very remote place. Yeah. That's where we chose to start, and I think that it was, in hindsight, a very smart move of ours. We didn't go after the big names. We didn't go after Memorial Sloan Kettering here in New York, and we didn't go after Mayo or Dana-Farber. We went where we know that there is an audience for the problem and an acceptance that they want to solve for it. And we were given the chance to build something that did not exist back then and build it together with a very committed and devoted team. By the way, the first user of the platform became our director of financial navigation in the company a few years later. So that's where we started. And like our approach, which was our approach, doesn't mean that it will translate well to other companies, was we have to get as fast as we can in the market, on the ground, and start testing out some of the assumptions that we've had before, some of the hypotheses that we had, and then start building solutions to real problems that users would appreciate, and that their executive teams would also be able to see direct value coming from our platform. And that was like the first step. From first step to the second customer, to the first big health system. And then you broaden your scope to other health systems. From the first health system to the first specialty pharmacy. And from that, broaden another vertical. And for us, it really worked, and we continue to do so. When we're entering a new space, whether it's a new vertical or a new client segment, or now like completely different offerings that are going way beyond affordability, we start with an hypothesis, we come as fast as we can to the market to test it out, and iterate based on that.
And I think the approach is, I was going to use the word commendable, but it's more than commendable, and I think it's the type of approach that you hear very effective founders and high performing teams take. But what strikes me is, if I hypothetically found a company tomorrow, and my company is within the world of tennis, matching people who want to play match against each other, for example, well, I may want to go and engage with customers straight away, and I may want to go and test my product. And if I screw up, the worst thing that happens is I don't connect two people that want to play a tennis match against each other. But the space you play in is, as you said, truly purpose-driven, and you play a critical, if we don't want to go so far as life-saving, which we probably could term it as that, it's a critical component of a healthcare journey. The outcome of failing in that journey would have significantly more impact than my silly example. Do you kind of carry the burden of that as you develop it? Is it something that you think about, or was it not?
You definitely think about it, but I think you need to realize a few things. First, if it was truly life-saving, there are restrictions and safeguards that you have to put in place that will prevent a team that might not be very thoughtful about it from doing the wrong things. Think about my experience prior to that in med device. We had an implantable neurostimulator. You can't run fast to the market. You need to go through FDA and, like in Europe, CE in order to even test it out in a clinical trial. So you follow different sets of policies and safeguards and regulations to make sure that teams are not doing the wrong thing. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to take a risk as a founder, whether it's tennis or whether it's like healthcare. You need to be ready to fail. You need to make sure that that failure would not translate into something that would be too impactful to a patient in our case. And then you need to also have belief in yourself that you can execute. And by the way, you need to start in what would be a reasonable risk to take. For us, it wasn't to go after the biggest, largest name in the country, but to the use case and the size of an organization that we can actually support. But at the end of the day, you do need to take a risk and trust yourself.
Yeah. And for an organization which is so purpose-driven, but the culture and the passion for it comes across just when you speak, what are some of the key principles of the organization today? Because it's very much no longer two co-founders going from Israel to Michigan. It's very different. I forget the town you mentioned, but the small town, it's a very different organization today. So what are some of the core principles, the core pillars?
Yeah. So I think that first, maybe let's talk about the journey that we've had since that winter in Michigan. TailorMed started as a point solution to solve for that very critical barrier of financial barrier to care. We started in very specific specialty care areas like oncology, neurology, rheumatology, and over the first couple of years, we expanded to be fully disease state agnostic because unfortunately we realized that the affordability crisis is not siloed to a specific condition. That helped us massively broaden our scope from specific service lines in hospitals to building two very large verticals. One, our provider vertical, working with large health systems and IDNs, community practices and clinics, and a pharmacy vertical that encompasses some of the largest specialty retail and infusion pharmacies in the country. Each and every one is now part of what we call the TailorMed Affordability Network. That network spans hundreds of hospitals, close to 1,000 now, thousands of clinics and pharmacies, and touches more than 15 million patients a year who are actively prescribed. Where we're going with it is that we recognize that the fact that we are so upstream in the patient journey and solving for such a must-have problem to solve for, which is cost, positions us in a way that we don't need to only focus on the affordability barrier, but we should think about other barriers that comes before, like patient's coverage, and come after, like patient onboarding to treatment, adherence, and so forth. And that's where the company is going. And I'm saying all of that because if you think about the principles of our organization, first of all, the company is more than 100 employees now. Still a very small company compared to the huge problem that we're trying to solve for, but we have started to create like a very robust customer organization that provides a key differentiator, I think, in terms of our customer engagement in a very consultative, high-touch approach to our customers, because we think that while our product and R&D team back in Tel Aviv are building great products, in order to translate that to real results, you need to handhold the customers, especially when it comes to large enterprises in healthcare, which are very hard to shift different behaviors. So I think that's one core pillar. Second core pillar is our engineering and product team. Think about the transformation that we're now experiencing with AI. How would you take advantage of that if that's not a core pillar of your company? I think the third is our kind of go-to-market team. We're fortunate to have 3 verticals that we sell into: providers, pharmacies, and pharma. But we're also burdened by the fact that each on its own is a very large, complicated vertical to sell into. So how do you do all of that with a small team? Eventually goes back to the core principles. We've been able to keep the team small, lean, and very passionate, so we can do those types of challenges without scaling to a massive organization that will slow us down and lose our DNA and culture from the very beginning.
And it's fascinating to hear you talk through that, and clearly it's something that's been developed over time, and brick by brick, I would say.
Yeah.
How has the wider context, the environment of healthcare within the United States changed during this journey for the organization? Does it look very similar to how it did when you first started? Is it very different today?
I would say, actually not wearing my CEO hat of TailorMed, unfortunately, it's still very similar to where it was 7 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm saying unfortunately because at the end of the day, now TailorMed is a bigger company that can address many other challenges and not only the affordability one. But that's where we started. And we started because there was a problem in the industry that we thought that we can help fix. That fix is a Band-Aid. At the end of the day, in the UK, in Israel, if someone has a critical diagnosis and they are prescribed a high-cost medication, it's not high cost. You would never think about it. And over the last few years, we started just after the Affordable Care Act during the Obama administration. We saw the Trump administration, number one. We saw the Biden administration. We are now at the early stages of the second administration of Trump. And there isn't a month that goes by that there isn't a new initiative that is either coming from the administration or from the industry that is talking about drug prices. And rightly so, because it is a huge problem for Americans. But I think that the way I'm viewing the situation is you have so many different stakeholders. Each category, let's talk about government, payers, pharma, patients, hospitals, and so forth, is a fairly large and strong group, and their incentives are a lot of times not aligned. And because of that, it's very hard to see change in a meaningful way happening. There was a big announcement of the last administration around the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. And it was, I think, an initiative that can have an impact on Medicare patients. It allows the Medicare CMS to negotiate prices for the first time, but it's very, very slow, very tiny. It's not even brick by brick. It's like the
piece of sand by piece of sand. Yeah.
And it's not moving fast enough. And I think that I would love to see more changes coming in to really change the core issues that are driving that challenge for patients. But unfortunately, I don't think it's coming fast enough.
And in an environment and in the world in which we live, which is moving so quickly with such dramatic, complex changes, whether we talk about technology, whether we talk about the regulatory changes or the needs of customers, having a product or a suite of products which are aligned to the needs of customers is obviously vitally important. Now, at the beginning of your journey, you benefited, like most founders, of being the individual who was in the room. You were the one interacting with customers. You were understanding their pains, and you were able to translate that directly into the product. Now you have, as you said, 100 plus people with a product team, which is, from where we sit today, the other side of the world, with individuals who are selling, who are on the ground here in the United States. And I can imagine that it's easy for disconnects to begin to appear between those different elements. Those who are with the customer, those who are developing and shipping products and deploying. How do you manage that world in which you exist?
Yeah, it's a good question that I'm still trying to figure out the answer for. If I'm being honest, I think that we have areas where we're able to set up the right foundations, from the support team to the customer success team to the customer engagement team to our product team and so forth, to be able to really put structure in place for voice of customer, for customer advisory boards, to like using this high touch approach that we have with customers, to come in on site regularly to see how they're using our products, to listen to what they are still challenged by and other adjacent problems that they have. And I think that this has served us really well. And we're still a fairly small organization, so we can see that feedback loop close pretty fast when we are on customer meetings or product roadmap meetings and so forth. But I think the challenge is that once we established that for our health system space, we launched a new vertical in pharmacy. So you're back to day one, although the company was 4 years old back then. And I think the only way for us to be able to build and adjust what we have for the new customer segment, which from the outside in seems pretty similar, it is, again, thinking about those early days in Michigan, coming on site, finding the right early partner that will be very vulnerable with you and like allow you more access than you would get from like someone at full scale, to make sure that you're making the right changes, the right product decisions. And we had that, and that's what we did. For us, it was Walgreens. And we found great partners there that allowed our product team and myself personally to come in and figure out what we need to make, and we had to make adjustments to make it work. And now we are in our third wave with pharma. So I think that we've mastered that muscle, I would say, that we need to come close to the customers very fast, very early, build, iterate, establish, and get to product market fit, and only then be ready to take on another challenge. But I still think that now as we're growing, it's something that as a management team is top of mind for us. How do we make sure that we don't have those breakdowns of communication? And I really hope that we can continue keeping it together, because like 5 years from now, when we are maybe 1,000 employees, it's just gonna be much harder. But if we put the right foundations and like the values of the company and like the core principles will be around those things, I think we might have a chance.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And you used a phrase which is building the muscle or training the muscle, and on the topic of strategy, that's something that we often say is the need to, strategy work isn't one bicep curl and then you put the weight down. You need to continuously exercise and train it. From a strategic standpoint, in terms of building that vision of where you're trying to drive the organization, and in terms of driving the organization in that direction, what are some of the challenges that you come up against as a co-founder, as someone who sits in the hot seat for TailorMed? What does that look like for you?
I think that we've been fortunate to start with a very narrow niche strategy and see a repeating pattern of like expansion of that vision and strategy, because we were really listening to the market, and the market has pulled us into the right places, and we never had to pivot, which is a very hard thing to do, but we were open to expanding our vision. And I think that we're now in yet another big inflection point of that expansion, because we are going after a network strategy, which is both exciting and challenging, and also because we can do so much more than affordability. But the challenge, I think, is it takes time from when you realize that there is a new horizon that you can go after to bringing your team along. And I think that I can give funny examples where I was already in a mindset that we're doing something new and just forgot to tell the team that that's where I am.
Yeah.
And then I would have a sidebar with someone from the management team and say, if you just given that context, we will be able to align with you and see why you're asking to do X and Y. So I think that you need to over communicate when you are like noticing that there is a change that has to happen because of like maybe a new business opportunity. You need to make sure that you are creating alignment internally and buy-in, because a lot of times it's not that you are starting a new company and everybody is now working on the new thing. There is a company, it's working, it's serving hundreds of hospitals and thousands of clinics, and now you're adding on a new thing. And you want to also be very prudent in the way you operate from a budget perspective. So you can't just like hire 30 people to do it. You need to do it with the same core team. And if you want them to be able to come on to the new chapter of this journey with you, you need to be very thoughtful about expanding them where you are.
Yeah.
And if you're able to shorten that gap between the vision to the strategy and then the execution, I think there is a better chance, to actually make it. Yeah. So that's, I think, one challenge. Yeah. If I have time, I have another challenge.
You definitely have time, and yeah, I'd love to hear it.
This is very fresh off the press. Okay. We are noticing that, as a two co-founder team, you can make changes on the spot. Mm-hmm. Like I would talk to Adam saying, Adam, we have to do this. Next day, it's done. You don't need to like create buy-in and like bring folks along with you to the journey. And obviously in applied materials, if you want to make a change, it's going to take committees and consulting firms, and it will take 6 months to have meetings to eventually make that change. I don't think we're in those two co-founder days anymore, and we're definitely not a large corporation. But I think that we are also, there is a new muscle that we need to train, is that we're able to notice the change we need to do. And it can be a structural change in the team. It can be a product, decision or a new product line. But the time it takes you from when you notice that you need to move to when you actually do it, it's not a step function. I would love for that to be a step function, but you need to run faster. And I think that's a challenge that we're dealing with now. And I think that the opportunity cost is so great, because if you think about a new company that will try to do the same thing that is founded today, their whole operating system is different. Yeah. They are AI first, different type of approach to solving problems. And for us to continue to be at the edge and the forefront of the industry, we need to make sure that another muscle of applying and moving fast is something that is almost as the early days and not like a corporate, which is very, very hard to do.
Absolutely. And we often describe that the stage that an organization is in is too big to be small, but too small to be truly big. And that can be, it's a hurdle to get over, but there are many hurdles along the way. It's also interesting to hear you talk through it, because what you're describing aligns very closely to a framework that we talk about, which is called the 3 Horizon framework, which is Horizon 1, what are the parts of our business that today we need to defend and extend? So the core elements. Horizon 2, where do we see those big opportunities for growth? We might play there today, but we see great opportunity for scale. And then Horizon 3 are those little bets. The little bets on areas of innovation, new markets, new products, for example, which most of them will probably fail. But if we fail, we want to fail quickly. But then over time, some of those Horizon 3 seeds that we plant might just grow into key components. And it sounds like that's something which, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you yourself and your co-founder Adam have built in, is those elements of how do we defend and extend, how do we scale, and then what are the little seeds that we need to plant, that we need to explore.
Totally, but you just need to figure out how those horizons are not too far.
Yes.
And you need to constantly work, and it's a battle to bring them closer, to fail faster, to validate sooner, because if there is a huge opportunity or a meaningful opportunity, you should capture it now and not leave it for someone else.
Yeah. To change tack slightly, we spoke very briefly before about AI, and you just mentioned that those who are entering the market today and maybe looking to compete in the space in which you are, they may be AI first, for example. Yeah. To what extent has TailorMed been disrupted by AI, and to what extent are you looking to leverage it now?
To a very large extent. I would say we are in a transition year, a meaningful transformation in the company because of the new opportunities we have with AI. 2 years ago, I think I was still like reading about it and it was a lot of buzz and I was kind of buzz averse. I don't know if you can say that. Just didn't want to just say, we're an AI company for the sake of saying that. And it took us some time to realize what would actually stick and what is applicable for us and where. And we've studied that a lot last year and decided to make this year a bit pivotal transition year for us when it comes to AI, with 3 different like streams that are now undergoing in the company. Okay. First that we chose was actually the engineering side. We have very concrete targets on how many features, how many projects are going to be AI first, AI supported, and without AI. I want to see that the second part of the year and towards the end of the year, there should be a very concrete reason not to use an AI first approach when you are coming in or like starting a new project. So that's a big initiative that we are seeing already, that more and more of the project and code is written by AI, and it just means that we can run faster and we can build more, and like that's number one. The second one is we have a services arm. TailorMed Complete is our team of advocates, extremely passionate individuals that work close with patients to provide them with financial counseling, to understand their financial barriers and find like solutions for them. But on the back end, there could be a lot of automation to allow them to do more and see a reduction of the manual steps that they need to take in order to then enroll the patient to a program, like post the claims for that specific out-of-pocket costs and so forth. So I think there is a lot of services opportunities with AI to make the same team be able to focus more of their time with patient and less of their time with administrative tasks. And last but not least is our product. We're a tech company. We have software that is now being used by thousands of patients, actually thousands of users and tens of thousands of patients a day. How can we build new capabilities that will make it easier, more streamlined for them? We just launched a new AI chatbot in our core platform called Teammate AI that is essentially a co-pilot for advocates to look for assistance, to enroll to assistance, to make sure it's another way to navigate a very complicated space of thousands of different programs driven by a prompt approach. And I do think that those 3 will be pillars of our AI strategy in the next 18 months, and it will drastically change how much we can accomplish with the same kind of core team that we have.
And hearing you talk about it, and it comes across from the very first question I asked all the way through to now is the passion that you have for this space. And clearly you're someone, I imagine, along with your co-founder, who has a very, very clear vision for where you want to take this. How do you connect your passion, your vision for the organization, the overriding goal of where you want to go? How do you connect that down to your team? How do you connect the vision with the strategy, with the choices you make, with execution, the individuals who are on the front line, whether it's selling, whether it's providing counseling, whether it's developing new features?
I think it's twofold. One, maybe 3. You need to hire the right people. I know it sounds so straightforward and cliche, but when you don't have the right folks in the right roles, you have so much overhead of trying to translate and over communicate because they don't get it. But when you do have the right leaders, it just makes everything easier. You don't need to think the same, but you need to be able over time to delegate much more and like communicate with someone you trust, and then hope that that person will do the same with their team members and so on and so forth. And I think that's number one. The second thing is you need to try and build processes and have like some cadence of meetings that those big, bold vision and ideas are translated down to the team doing the work in the field, and especially make sure they know the context as to the reason this is the feature that they need to build. This is a project that we're trying to execute on. So we are always iterating on those like cadence of meetings. We had like 3 years ago, we were all in the same office, so it was much easier. Now we have a global team. We have team members in Israel, the West Bank, Poland, and all across the United States. How do you bring them together? So we have our monthly all hands. We have for each squad that is dealing with a theme, like our consumer theme or pharma theme, a monthly steering committee. And then we have a QBR. And then after a few quarters running that, maybe you need to scrape it and start something new because you are seeing that there is breakdown of communications, or maybe the communication is great and you don't need to have those meetings anymore. I think that's the second thing that we're trying to work on. And the third is trying to instill a culture of a very flat organization. If I can go and shadow a TailorMed complete employee, and if my product person can just come with a customer success manager on site, and if our support team can, like, that works just in my next office, can come to me and say, listen, we just had this thing that happened. You are like encouraging a very open, honest, and vulnerable communication. And that's a way to make sure that you have less and less, I would say, hurdles that you need to go over when it comes to translating an idea to action. Each alone would not be enough, but I think together, if you put it in the right way and you listen and like analyze those breakdowns, there is a chance that you can actually make it work.
Yeah. I want you to imagine for just a moment that we're sitting here, could be in this room in 3 years' time, and we're sitting here and we're talking about the incredible achievements of TailorMed over the past 3 years. If we were in that conversation to look back on today, on 2025, what are the choices that TailorMed made during that time? What were the opportunities you maximized? What capabilities did you build to achieve that incredible success?
I think first and foremost, and using your framework, is making sure that we didn't lose sight of Horizon 1. I think we have such an immense amount of opportunities to build the company and take it to new horizons, and I'll talk about it in a second. But if we are really honest about what we've achieved so far, we've built this network of organizations that trust us and our solutions to handle something super delicate, which is patient cost and patient engagement around critical parts of their journey. And if we fail to realize that that's our biggest asset, everything eventually will collapse. So 3 years from now, if we're very successful, it means that we didn't only grow our network, we retained the customers and pleased them with like enhanced products and like engage with patients in a very thoughtful and way with empathy. And we protected our base and we then expanded our base. I think if we have that, we have a chance to do the second and third and fourth thing. And I think that the bigger opportunities ahead of us that I'm excited about would be to look for the next barrier that patients go through after they are able to afford their treatment and solve another one. And if we're successful, maybe solving 2 or 3 more in the next 3 years. That will be with new products. It will be with additional services. And some of those could actually be with inorganic growth. And I think that when you think about the end-to-end journey, which is what we're now trying to solve for, from the moment a patient is diagnosed, when they are prescribed, when they get their first medication, to when they refill their medication, and so on and so forth, I want to be able to see TailorMed grow into every one of those touch points in the patient journey and have digital-first solutions for that are built on top of this very large and expanding network. And a lot of that will be our team building. In other cases, we might look for partners. In other cases, we might acquire. And I think if we do 2 or 3 of those things really well, we can sit here in 3 or 4 years and like be very proud.
Yeah, and I think it sounds to me anyway that you have a very clear, concrete plan. Of course, the world will change.
The extended plans like hold, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but what excites you most? What really drives you when it comes to TailorMed in this particular industry?
I think the impact that we are doing. It goes back to that. Every day that we wake up, like there is an opportunity to help millions of patients be able to live a better life, to deal with their like life-threatening or maybe not that severe conditions. And if we can do that with someone, with a team that likes to work together, I think that we are the luckiest people in the world.
Fantastic. And for those that want to know more about TailorMed as an organization, or just more about the work that the organization does, where can they go? To the website, of course, I imagine.
Yeah, so they can go to our website, which is tailormed.co. They can reach out to me directly at srulik@tailormed.co.
Fantastic. Look, really appreciate the time today. Really a fascinating conversation for me personally, and really appreciate your time and your insights as well.
Thank you so much.
It was
fun.
Thank you.